Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 30 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. I want to start things off today with a few shout-outs and also a correction to get us started. A couple of episodes ago, when I was talking about my trip to LA, I mentioned I met a guy named Kyle Norke and had a very interesting conversation with him. And on that episode, I said, I believe he trains up in Canada with Steve Jonkus. And in reality, he is in Canada, up in Winnipeg, but he trains with Mike Tavares at his school. So I wanted to make that correction and do a shout out to Mike. I've heard great things about you and your instruction. Also want to shout out to a couple of friends of mine that I recently was able to get together and train with at different times. My good friend Jim Pfeiffer, who owns a school over in Williamston, North Carolina. Always a pleasure to get with Jim. He's just such a great stand-up guy, very quality individual. So I really enjoyed seeing you, Jim. As well as Doug Sau. I had a chance to train with him at my house recently. Doug and I used to be training partners some years back. And one of the nicest and one of the smartest guys that I know, and one of the best training partners as well. Just always a pleasure to get with him as well. So thanks, Doug. Also wanted to shout out to a couple of people who gave their input on providing questions for Rickson. On the last episode with Rickson Gracie, we announced that Rickon's going to be part of the show and from time to time fielding questions or just talking about relevant subjects that he would like to cover. So Derek Sang from Australia sent in a question, so we're definitely going to be using that. So thank you, Derek. As well as Art Yamas, who trains in Oklahoma, also sent in a question, and I appreciate that as well. We'll definitely use these. Anybody else have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call or email us. And you can find that contact information on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. Okay, now I'd like to move on to a short product review. I recently got introduced to a company and its products called Rockin' Green, eco-friendly cleaning products. And Kim Giraldo is the CEO of Rockin' Green. And they recently launched their Rockin' Green athletic wear detergent. So I got her to send me some of the product and tried it out for my gis. And I was very happy with the product. The detergent worked very well. It smells nice, very nice, and did a great job cleaning my gis, my kimonos. I do like the idea of, eco-friendly and green, good for the environment. It's also very easy on your skin. You can even wash baby clothes or kids' geese. Very nice for anybody that has sensitive skin or any skin issues as well. So I'd rate it as very high, and I would recommend Rockin' Green eco-friendly cleaning products for cleaning your uniforms. To find out more about the Rockin' Green products, you can go to www.rockinggreensoap.com. And great job, Kim Giraldo. Okay, this brings us to our jiu-jitsu quote. And that is, "True strength is not always shown through victory. Stand up, try again, and display strength of heart." And that's from Master Rickson Gracie. And my guest today is considered one of Rickson Gracie's top black belt instructors, and his name is Henry Aikins. I'm sure many of you have heard of Henry, and if you haven't, he's been around a long time, has made a very positive name for himself in the jiu-jitsu world and community. He's known world over as an incredible jiu-jitsu teacher and instructor. So happy to be talking to him today. So let's meet Henry now. Hello, Henry.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and talking with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. Well, I know you've had a long and interesting jiu-jitsu journey, so let's just start with, if you would share how your martial arts and jiu-jitsu journey began.
Yeah, so I moved from Oklahoma to Los Angeles in 1995 to train jiu-jitsu with Rickson Gracie. And yeah, I specifically sought out Rickson at the time to train underneath him, and I basically at that point committed myself to training. I originally started, I was, almost kind of living at the academy, spending like 12 to 14 hours a day there, just trying to be there for all the classes and absorb as much knowledge as I could. And so I've been doing jiu-jitsu for almost, actually to be 20 years this summer. So
wow.
Pretty crazy. It'll be half my life this summer.
So you immediately went directly to train with Rickson Gracie. What opened your eyes to jiu-jitsu and made you want to seek out Master Rickson for that instruction?
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, like I mentioned, or went to high school in Oklahoma, and I had a lot of friends that were involved in wrestling, and I saw how effective wrestling was as a style for self-defense, or for, wrestlers very, very good at takedowns, taking people down, getting on top. And I just saw how effective it was for fighting. And so I was always really, really passionate about martial arts. I grew up watching, all the Bruce Lee movies and Kung Fu theater every weekend and stuff like that. So I loved martial arts. And at that time, I was training some Taekwondo and training some other stuff. And I was always trying to find and seek out a grappling-based martial art. And so I saw an old grainy VHS tape of Gracie in action. And basically, after I saw that was it, I was like, that's what I've been looking for. That's what I want to learn. So, I came out to LA on spring break one year to train, and I trained for a week at Rickson's, and then right after I trained there, I was just fell in love. And so, 2 months later, I packed up all my stuff and moved out. Wow.
So you did the week, and that was it, and you knew it was for you? And
yeah, it was just so powerful of an experience, At that time, I was a pretty physical kid. I worked out a lot, and, to be able to be manhandled and just played with, by guys that are so much smaller than you, it was a pretty humbling experience. you know. And right after that, I was like, wow, it almost felt like magic. You know, I was like, wow, this is what I need to learn. Like, you know, just I've never had someone be able to overwhelm me so easily with so little effort.
And you had to have more.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you made the move and you never looked back.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like you were pretty much, after you made the move, you were pretty much living there, completely dedicated to it. How long were you out there at the academy with Rickson?
Well, the academy changed locations a couple of times, but I basically was with Rickson from 1995 to 2010.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. He moved back to Brazil. I think he moved back maybe a year before that or so. He had kind of gone back to Brazil, and that was kind of on my mind a little bit. And so in 2010, I pretty much opened up my own gym, Dynamics Martial Arts, and started teaching there with I have a partner there. His name's Anthony Hardonk, who teaches kickboxing.
Now, I heard that name. He's a fighter, right?
Yeah, so he fought for a few years in the UFC.
Okay.
He was a heavyweight in the UFC, and he fought for many years in K1, which is the old Japanese kickboxing organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I definitely had heard the name, but I wasn't placing him. And so you guys run an academy together now?
Yeah, so we run an academy together, and it's really awesome. He comes from like an amazing lineage of martial arts too. His gym that he trained with, and for almost 15 plus years was the Boss Gym in the Netherlands, and they produced so many world champions there, like Ernesto Hoost and Remy Benjowski was from there, is there, and Ivan Hippolyte. And so he spent many years training with one of the founders of Dutch kickboxing, Johan Voss. And so his lineage is really, really similar to my lineage, even though it's completely different martial art. He spent years and years and years training with, kind of like the best of the best.
Wow. And how did you guys meet up? How did your paths cross?
He was actually training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at one of our affiliates in the Netherlands. And so he had come out one year. He didn't have any kickboxing fights coming up and was just playing around with jiu-jitsu, and he was kickboxing professionally, but he didn't have any fights coming up. And so he came out to L.A. to train at Rickson School for a couple weeks. And so we became friends. We started training together then, and we just maintained a friendship since then. So, he was coming out a couple times a year, and I was helped him get into the UFC. I had some friends that were involved in the UFC and helped get him a contract. And it just kind of grew from there.
Great. Now, I also know that you've done some security work with some bands, at least one band in particular, Tool. And I know the frontman Maynard actually just received his purple belt recently, right?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And how did you get started working security with them?
Well, Maynard was training at the academy. He was training at Rickson's. And he was actually a blue belt when I started. So I was a white belt, he was a blue belt. And I was just very, very consistent, super dedicated to training. And so I got my blue belt. And when they were going on the road for their Enema album, he wanted to bring a security person with him that also could train with him some jiu-jitsu, so that he'd have a training partner so he could, train while he was gone. And so he asked me if I wanted to go, and I think it was like 20 at the time. And I was like, heck yeah, I'd love to go.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really cool experience. I think I was on the road with them for 3 months or so, and pretty awesome. It was a lot different than what I had expected. Obviously, there's a lot of work involved. When you're touring with a band, when you're on the road, and I thought it was just going to be traveling and hanging out, but there's actually quite a bit of work involved, and you don't really get to see much of wherever you're visiting unless you have a day off. It's man, touring is very, very hard work. And so after that tour, I decided that was enough for me. I need to get back and focus on jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
so it's not as glamorous as some people may think it is, right?
Touring, no, absolutely not.
Lots of work.
It can be fun, but I definitely think for the roadies, the guys that are really in the background that you don't see on stage, those guys put in some hours, man. It's just tons and tons of respect for those guys. They're up in the morning and they're going to bed at like 2 at night. They're up at 7 and, setting up the whole thing. It's, pretty.
My brother was actually a roadie for the band Molly Hatchet many years ago. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but he talked about just how crazy amount of work there was and just how crazy the atmosphere itself was.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And so like when I was on the road with them, I was kind of a security, / even though I really had no background in security work, it was mostly just hanging out and just kind of making sure certain things were okay and checking people's credentials and stuff like that. But
okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was fun.
It sounds like quite an experience. Well, Ty Gay, who I had on the show, episode number 2, talks about meeting you for the first time because of Maynard, and how he tells the story of you, him coming up to you, and he could just tell you did something, some kind of martial art. So he asked you about it, and you took this really cool stance and said Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and he was just like, whoa. He also said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that was after the first couple of UFCs, and so people had just started, learning about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and Hoist, had won the first couple of UFCs, and so it was kind of just getting in people's, it was just getting in front of people, people were kind of blown away by the art, so it was really cool.
Absolutely. He also wrote, because of Maynard, he met you, and because of you, he is who he is today. So what a strong statement, and how cool it is that you've had that deep an impact on his life as well as others, and then for those individuals that you've impacted to go on and impact countless others. So it's really great that you kind of started the ripple effect, as I call it, and have just really touched a lot of lives like that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing the ripple effect you can cause. But I think, that it's pretty interesting with any of our actions, not with jiu-jitsu, but any of our actions cause a ripple effect in the world,
Absolutely.
So it's really, really cool, just to see the positivity being spread.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk in a moment about staying with the subject of positivity and growth and everything. And I want to hear about the recent program that you completed. But before we get there, let's go back to Rickson for a few minutes. With all the time that you spent with Rickson Gracie, what would you say is the most important thing or lesson that you learned from him, if you can narrow it down like that? And also, if you would, talk about the term or notion of invisible jiu-jitsu for those who have never heard of that.
Okay. The most powerful thing I think I learned from Rickson was the philosophy and concepts of jiu-jitsu, the underlying philosophy and concepts, which is, obviously safety, the understanding of how to maintain positions and why you want to maintain dominant positions, the strategy behind jiu-jitsu, the concepts of how not to use strength, how to be relaxed and you can still be effective. So those things were really, really powerful, and were really, really deeply instilled in me and my understanding of jiu-jitsu and my application of jiu-jitsu. Invisible jiu-jitsu is the term invisible jiu-jitsu is basically Rickson started using it because there's so many subtle elements to his jiu-jitsu, minor adjustments and tweaks in the jiu-jitsu that are very, very difficult to see to the untrained eye, that vastly improve the effectiveness of each technique. And so with every technique that he does, there's these tiny little elements, tiny little tweaks, tiny little movements that he does to make things 10 times more effective so that you don't have to use strength, you don't have to, or it will work against a much bigger, stronger opponent, So, that's what the whole term invisible jiu-jitsu kind of refers to, is these tiny little hidden elements.
Excellent. I was first introduced to Rickson. I was able to attend some seminars with him back in '96.
Oh wow!
In Florida, and it was still just a few years after the whole UFC and everything was really getting going. So it was an exciting time. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stay progressively with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu from then until now. Kind of bounced around, did some other things, but just to be exposed to him, it was an incredible experience. So I think it's awesome that you were able to be directly under him and with him through so much of your journey, and didn't end there. I'm sure you've continued to develop in your own right and continue on your journey yourself. So
right. Yeah, the crazy thing with it is jiu-jitsu is like as a white belt, obviously you'll learn some stuff, and then you'll see the same thing as a blue belt or purple belt, and you'll pick up even more from it, and then you'll see the same technique as a brown belt, and you kind of get a deeper level of understanding of it. So it's actually really, really cool, how much, you've heard stories about him going and teaching seminars, and even the most basic techniques like the bridge or whatever, he can show black belt and even help black belts, become more proficient at, techniques that they've been doing for 20 years.
Yes. There's so many different layers, right? And depending on where you are and where you are in your journey and what you're able to absorb at the time, then that's what you will absorb. You may be introduced to something that you've seen 100 times, but if you're at a different place, it becomes a much, much deeper understanding.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu for sure. Since you have been involved in jiu-jitsu for so many years, what's the biggest change you've seen in jiu-jitsu through the years, and is there any positive or negative aspects to these changes or this change?
I don't see anything so much as positive or negative. One thing that I have noticed is there's just been a huge amount of growth in the art, in people's interest in it, and the practitioners in it. It's like it's been a literal explosion the past 20 years of people that are training. And, obviously I give credit to all the black belts out there that are promoting it. Obviously the UFC has had a huge impact on putting it in people's faces, and so that is really something positive. It's something really, really amazing that there's been so many people now that are involved in it. What has changed? I think one of the big things that has really changed is I think people's intention in their application of it. I think, just the past few years has kind of been a big I don't want to say split, but I think there's a lot of people that are training jiu-jitsu to compete in a sport, compete in tournaments, and then there's kind of a divide of people that believe in jiu-jitsu as a martial art, and their intention is to practice it and teach it for more of kind of like a self-defense system. And so that I think, in the beginning when I was first training it, and it was primarily practiced as a martial art for fighting. And now with the growth of competition and the growth of tournaments, and when I first started, there was literally maybe 2 or 3, decent sized tournaments a year in the United States. And now, it's crazy. There's a tournament every weekend, and there's like the World Championships is held here now. The Pan Ams is held here now. So it's kind of crazy how big it's grown here in the United States. Mm-hmm. So, and the exposure to it too, because with so many practitioners, you have all these jiu-jitsu magazines and websites now. When I first started, there wasn't any of that, So
right.
It's really cool, the exposure, but I think also that, a lot of these publications really focus on the competition side of jiu-jitsu. And,
right.
And so I think it's kind of, a lot of the schools have kind of moved away from focusing on jiu-jitsu as a martial art, as a form of self-defense, and as something that's practical, to something that is more sporty.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's not unlike karate or other arts that you've seen, develop throughout the years, the long history. Karate, when it first was originated, was very self-defense, and then in modern times, you've seen it split off to
a big push in certain segments for competitive karate,
Right.
which is a whole different animal. They're both karate, but they're just very different, and neither one's right or wrong per se, but it's just different. I will say, the more you put it into a sport context, let's take just for an example Taekwondo, and I'm not picking on them. It's just I used to do that as well as other arts, but. For example, you can't punch to the face and can't kick the legs or the groin, so you can kick the head or the body, and then you can punch to the body. So on the defensive side, you get used to those threats only and only defending those threats.
Right.
So then if you're faced with someone kicking your groin or something, you could be totally unprepared for it. It's a lot like that with jiu-jitsu. The sport aspect, the way it's evolved, in some ways is a beautiful thing, but in others, when you're looking at it in self-defense or realistic street application, it could certainly not serve you too well.
Right. Exactly. And, I think everyone gets involved in jiu-jitsu for different reasons.
Sure.
I think for the most part, people get involved in jiu-jitsu because they want to find something that they can work out, but also something that, where they're going to get some exercise, but also something that they can learn to defend themselves. I think originally when most people start, and then competing becomes something that they start, that becomes a part of them later,
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of schools kind of push people towards competition, a lot of the competition schools, which kind of, I think, changes people's original intention or their original path. I know when I first got involved, the strict purpose for me was to learn a martial art that I could use if I needed to defend myself or protect someone else, Yeah, and so I see a lot of the techniques and a lot of the things that guys are doing nowadays in those, obviously are not that effective.
Sure. If you're not practicing with someone trying to punch you, even if they're not, of course, in a training environment trying to take your head off, but just that element of a threat, it changes your whole perspective, for sure.
And that's the thing, is it doesn't need to be, I have a class that I teach at my gym where it's once a week. It's a no-gi class, and we put on gloves, and we do with strikes, and nobody's trying to take anyone's head off.
Right.
But the whole idea is so that we can help our training partners be aware of what can happen when you put yourself in certain positions. And it's just to keep you conscious of, hey, in this position I can get hit here, or in this position, like, these punches are available to him, or these elbows are available to him, or he can knee me here. So it's just kind of always kind of stay sharp and keep your mind aware of what can happen if you do ever need to use jiu-jitsu to protect yourself, and there's a situation where striking is involved.
Yes, and how you may have to manage that distance differently than without strikes.
Well,
that's great.
Manage the distance, or control certain limbs, like how well you can control your opponent, control their arms, and understanding what are the tools that they have available to them to be able to do damage to you.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about your time off the mat, Henry. I know you've gone through a program recently that, you can tell us what it is, but I know it has to do with self-growth and development. So let us know about that.
Yeah, I'm always trying to do things to kind of improve myself, always looking for ways to improve myself. So reading, and, I think the three areas that constantly trying to grow is physically, always trying to stay healthy and exercise and work out, and mentally by reading and spiritually. And so this program that I did, actually my good friend Scott Nelson from On the Mat recommended it to me, and it was an emotional intelligence course that I did in Vegas through this place called Choice Center. And it was just a really, really cool, powerful course where you really learn a lot about yourself, how to communicate with others. You understand kind of how your life has been affected by, everyone as they go through life is exposed to certain traumas and certain experiences in life that kind of create belief systems in your head. So it kind of helps you to understand all these belief systems that have been created through all your life experiences, and it kind of helps you to better yourself or become a better person. And it was actually 2 weekends, and then they have another portion of the course, which is like 100 days. But the two weekends, the first two weekends that I went were probably the two most powerful, transformational weekends that I've experienced for growth.
Wow.
Yeah, very,
That's
very
great.
cool experience. And I've done a ton of other things too, to always try to grow. I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, which 10 days of silence, which is actually really, really cool too, and really, really life-changing, very, very powerful. So
that's great. I love not only continuously trying to grow myself, but hearing about others' journey along those lines. So
I think that's the whole journey of life. The whole journey of life is to constantly grow and try to improve yourself and become a better human being, a better person. And the course that I did in Vegas, it's all based off emotional intelligence, and it's really just helps you to understand yourself better, understand your emotions better, understand other people better, and it helps a lot with just how to communicate and have better relationships, which at the end of the day, that's really on this planet, everything that we do is about having relationships with other people.
Absolutely.
Whether it's your parents or your brothers and sisters or your friends or your coworkers. And so if you can have great relationships in every aspect of your life, it just, it adds so much to your life.
Without a doubt. Is that Daniel Goldberg, who Emotional Intelligence?
Daniel Goleman, I think.
Goleman,
is his name. Yeah, and he has a book called Emotional Intelligence, and so he's kind of the founder of this type of work. He has a book called Emotional Intelligence, and then I know there's another book called Social Intelligence that he wrote too. And I have both those books and I read them.
I read the first one. It's been a little while, but yeah, I love that. And I also did Tony Robbins seminars, and definitely very, very powerful stuff as well. I feel like if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. So
yeah, it's definitely. That information is so powerful. It really is life changing when you really start to understand, your choices and your actions, how much your choices and your actions affect your life, and when you really can start to understand why you make those choices, why you behave in a certain way and why you choose to do things in a certain way, has such a dramatic effect on your life. So the more you understand about yourself, the better your life can become.
Absolutely. It's a difference between being self-aware and not being self-aware, and it's a whole different life and a whole different experience going through life.
It totally
that awareness.
Is. It totally is.
Well, hopefully, hearing this, some people might be attracted to pursuing that training, that specific training that you did.
The website is choicecenter.com, and like I said, I did it. It was amazing for me, and I know they have courses every 6 weeks or something like that, or 2 months. They put on a course, and it's based out of Las Vegas, and totally life changing for me. So
great.
I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, and you mentioned Scott Nelson, your friend. I read on his Facebook posting how much he felt like he got out of it too. Just incredible experience for both of you.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears for a minute, Henry. What do you see as the biggest struggle for the average mid-level jiu-jitsu student? Say someone who's been blue belt for a little while, or maybe just got to purple or something like that, and feel like they've kind of getting into a rut, aren't growing as fast as they would like or as deep as they would like. And what advice would you have for them?
I think the big thing is just enjoy the journey. People always want to be better, faster, and there's so much to learn in jiu-jitsu, not only about the art, but about yourself, how you respond to different stress. The journey is so important, instead of focusing on belts and focusing on this or that. And the other thing too is in training, you're always going to have bad days. There's always going to be days where you suck, and there's always going to be periods of time. It's kind of like the stock market. Over time, you're always improving, but there's definitely going to be some down days. And so I just don't let those days affect you, and just keep pushing forward and keep being consistent and keep training. It's like some days you get on the mat and your mind is somewhere else. You're thinking about your girlfriend or thinking about work or thinking about what you need to do. And anytime you're not present and in the moment when you're training, you're never going to be able to do well. I like to think about jiu-jitsu as almost like a moving meditation. Anytime you're training, you have to be so present and aware of what is going on, what position you're in, what your opponent's trying to do to you, what your options are going to be. It keeps you very, very, very focused and present. I think that's what a lot of people love about jiu-jitsu is you could be having a bad day, but when you come to train and someone's there on top of you trying to tap you out or trying to catch you, you're not thinking about anything else but how to survive and how to stay safe and how to get out, and how to, or if you're in a dominant position and they're trying to get out, how to basically maintain, So, yeah, I mean, it's so amazing, the art and the focus it takes to actually do well. And I just think there's days where things are bothering you or your mind is somewhere else, and not to let those days or not to let those ruts affect you, because I've had times like that too, where I've been in a rut and I feel like, oh man, all these guys that I used to just, smoke, now they're all giving me a hard time, and used to let it bum me out. And then, literally 2 months later, then you're going through them easy again. And, I think you just really enjoy the journey and try to learn as much as possible. For me now, like the way that I train is mostly just playing, playing and trying to learn and trying to feel what's going on, trying to feel what my opponent's trying to do, trying to be sensitive to his movements and see if I can capitalize on tiny little mistakes that he's making.
That's great. I love hearing the way you described it as like in the stock market, or you're going to have some good days, some bad. But if you step back and look at it in the bigger picture, you're still progressing.
Yeah.
Don't let the day-to-day good, bad days that are going to happen have so much meaning, right?
Right.
Just take them in stride and keep going forward and staying in the moment and having fun and going forward. That's what I took from that, and I think it's really great insight and advice.
And, a lot of times I think it's hard for students to really see their progress because you're training with the same people on a daily basis, and kind of everyone is improving kind of at the same rate. It's when you pull yourself out of that environment and compare yourself to maybe someone completely new, then you kind of see like really how much you've grown or how much better you've gotten. I think just training with the same group of people all the time, because everyone is growing at the same pace, it kind of stays consistent. You think like, man, I'm not getting any better, But
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah,
great point. Would you suggest going to other places on occasion, or how would you suggest being able to rectify that, exposing yourself to others who aren't at the same environment or level as you?
I think it's great to train at other places. Obviously, there's a and it still kind of exists in the jiu-jitsu community now. A big thing about there's the politics and being loyal to your school. But I definitely think it's good to go train at other places, because each instructor has a different style, or even go to seminars, and learn different things outside of your box. Every instructor has a different style. They have a different approach to jiu-jitsu. I compare jiu-jitsu, it's like basketball. We're all playing the same game, but everyone has their own specific style, of how they play. Yeah, there's not two Michael Jordans, even though all these guys, all the guys on the court are still playing basketball. You have Michael Jordan, and then you have a Scottie Pippen, and then you have, even though all the guys are still doing the same thing, they're still shooting, they're still dribbling, So I think it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu, and that's one of the reasons they call it an art form, is because for each person, it's their own personal expression of what they've learned, So I think it's really, really beneficial to train with other people, just to feel different styles,
Absolutely. All right. Do you have a favorite quote or motto that inspires you or that you live by?
Favorite quote or motto? I have something on my email that is basically from Gladiator. And what it says is, what we do in this life echoes through eternity, which is kind of something similar to what we were just kind of discussing earlier. I think all of your actions kind of have a ripple effect,
Absolutely.
And if you do something, and for example, you do something nice to one person and you make their day, and they become happier, they become, they're going to treat people throughout the rest of the day different, And it could have been because of something that you did, something that you created. And so I think that's just really, really important to understand that even the smallest of our actions can create a ripple effect to create positivity or negativity in the world. And it's just really, really important to understand that everything that we do, we want to be aware and conscious of, and obviously always try to do the best we can, and try to create more positivity in the world.
Absolutely. And it keeps coming back to that awareness, right? The more aware we have, the more self-awareness we have, we'll be conscious of even the little things having a positive or negative, good or bad effect, and how we can focus and concentrate more on it being a positive effect in the world. So that's great. And you seem to have such a great positive attitude, Henry. So I really applaud that. You seem to be not only a quality person, and I've heard awesome things about you as an instructor. In your seminars are always well received and great feedback. But you also seem to have that real positive energy going and want to make a positive difference, and it really shines through. So
I think, jiu-jitsu has been a big part of that for me too. Like I said, I kind of consider it a movement meditation, but I think jiu-jitsu is such a powerful tool for self-transformation. One of the things it does is it really helps to instill confidence in people. And the better that you feel about yourself, the better that you can treat others. And I really, really believe that it's been such a amazing, powerful tool for transformation for me. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about teaching it, is I know that every time I teach, every time I travel to do a seminar, I have the potential to create a positive change in someone. And that change has a ripple effect, So I think that just with jiu-jitsu, the better that you feel about yourself, maybe you had a bad day at work and you go train, and all of a sudden you don't feel so bad anymore. Now you're going to go home to your family and you're going to treat your family much better. The more confidence you have in yourself, the better you feel about yourself. And that's one of the big things actually they talk a lot about at the emotional intelligence course. The better that you feel about yourself, the better that you're going to be able to treat other people.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you want to give us the website address to your academy?
Yeah, it's dynamicsmartialarts.com or dynamicsmma.com. So you can use either of those. And that's the link to my academy. And we are in Los Angeles, California, off Santa Monica Boulevard. So if anybody's ever in LA, everyone is welcome to stop by and come in and train.
Great. So before we close, Henry, anything else you'd like to share with us about jiu-jitsu or life in general?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, I really do appreciate you sharing your insights, wisdom, and time with us. It's been great. I hope to meet you in person someday. And again, I really appreciate you talking with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, and the same, Marty. Hopefully we can meet in person one day. And thank you for having me on. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you sharing your time with me. So it means a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, really enjoyed that interview with Henry. Such an awesome and insightful person, and it was a pleasure speaking with him. Okay, stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Let's start with a quote. Growth means change, and change involves risk, stepping from the known to the unknown. I've heard it said that the only constant in life is change. And change is going to happen whether we want it to or not. And this can be scary because change invariably involves getting out of our comfort zone. And our comfort zones, by very definition, are comfortable to us. So most of us are pretty reluctant to get out of our comfort zone if we don't have to. But it's important to to be willing to get out of our comfort zone if we want to continue to grow and learn and develop. So here's a couple things you can do. When you feel the resistance of a situation, when you feel that discomfort, and you may even hear an inner voice, inner critical voice saying, I can't do this, or questioning, can I do this? Am I going to look like a fool? First of all, be aware. Be aware of that voice, and that it's okay to have that voice. It's there to an attempt to protect you. But it also limits you from growth. So as you're aware of that voice happening, counter it or override it with the thought of why you want to do this, why you want to accomplish this particular thing. And the stronger that why can be, the stronger that reason is that you want to do a certain activity or grow in this area, generally the more willing you'll be to go through that temporary discomfort to achieve it. So be aware of it and remember the why, and that'll push you forward. Another thing that helps is visualizing, or visualization. See yourself on the other side, having already accomplished what it is you want to accomplish, or having already made the change you want to make, or done the thing that you want to do. The more you can clearly see yourself having already accomplished that, or making that change, the more real it'll be to you in your mind, and it gives your mind a specific direction, both consciously and unconsciously, to start going for and moving towards. And the last thing is just to be easy on yourself and don't expect to be perfect. Lots of times change is something that we're initiating, and sometimes change is just thrust upon us. Either way, whether you want to make a change or have to make a change, it can be a very uncomfortable thing. So just keep breathing, visualize the end result you want, and question that critical voice through awareness, and keep moving forward. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of the show. As always, I appreciate you listening, and I do welcome your feedback. Please like us on Facebook if you haven't already. Follow us on Twitter. You can leave a comment about the show or a question that you'd like for Peter on Gracie to address by going to www.graciejujitsurocks.com. Also, if you get over to iTunes, please rate the show and leave a comment there as well. I hope you guys have a truly awesome day, week, and month, and I do appreciate you listening. As always, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.